Welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Kibin, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. In the wake of the pandemic, New York City found a way for many of us to enjoy our favorite restaurants. Now the city wants to make it a permanent part of NYC's dining experience. Joining me to discuss the latest on the effort is Erick Gregory of the Department of City Planning and Emily Weidenhof of the Department of Transportation. Thank you both for joining us. So I want to start off just talking about open restaurants. Many New Yorkers may have seen it and taken a part of it, but unless you own a restaurant or work in that field, you may not know what it is. So can you tell us more about the Open Restaurants program?
Absolutely. New York City Open Restaurants was an innovative red tape cutting response to a dire emergency. When COVID-19 came to New York City, restaurants could not operate indoors. And so the city very quickly moved to suspend zoning regulations that allowed restaurants to utilize their streets and sidewalks for outdoor dining. And DOT created a one-stop shop self-certification program online that allowed restaurants to apply. The program was incredibly successful. We have upwards of almost 12,000 restaurants that have self-certified through the program, which saved 100,000 jobs. As we transition from pandemic to the permanent program, we're very excited to think strategically and in a really smart way about guidelines that will ensure safety and accessibility and create a program that supports both restaurants and communities for many years to come.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, and you just mentioned briefly, it is on track to becoming a permanent part of our dining experience. Can you tell us why the city may have decided to make this a permanent part of our dining experience in New York City?
Open restaurants, like I said before, was wildly successful, so much participation, and overall, uh, eating outside brought life and vibrant streets to New York City. And that's the spirit that we are looking to maintain in the program. Yet we also want to create really clear guidelines and take a lot of community feedback to make sure that we're shaping a program that can be responsive to all the different needs and uses on our streets. I don't need to tell you that there are so many people that share New York City streets, and we really want to get the balance right to make sure that restaurants can both have outdoor dining, but they can also get the critical deliveries that they need, and that emergency vehicles have access to blocks, and that our sidewalks are open and clear for people of all abilities to get to where they need to go.
So, because you mentioned that it's going to be a permanent part of New York City, that's super exciting. There is now a citywide public engagement process for design rules on permanent outdoor dining setups located on our city streets. Can one of you tell us more about that?
Yeah, thank you. We've heard a lot to date about the program that Emily mentioned, the emergency setups where there's been over 12,000 restaurants that are participating currently. Want to note that there's 650 in the Bronx alone, which is quite a lot compared to the 30 that participated pre-COVID. So it's a wildly successful program. We've learned a lot through public engagement. We've been to 59 community boards over the summer, really hearing critical feedback, a lot of concerns around noise, quality of life, sanitation, trash, and those are really important things for us to gather. And now as we move towards a phase where we're trying to see how that input translates into design and how can we learn from the setups that are currently out there and making them even better and more responsive. So really take into account the challenges that restaurateurs have been up against while also making sure that we're being better neighbors to those around us.
So, I'm really curious to know what are some of the rules that we have now for outdoor dining, and how will this program or this initiative build upon that?
Yeah, so pre-COVID, there was a sidewalk cafe program that was very limited in geography. As Emily said earlier, only certain parts of the city had access to that. And so by opening this up citywide, it really puts a lot of emphasis on the siting of these restaurants. So, are you making sure that you're maintaining a distance from a fire hydrant? How close are you to a bus stop? Are there bike lanes present? So these are things that are happening right in front of a business where we need to make sure that they're accounting for those sidewalk furniture and other obstructions, maintaining the appropriate distances and clearances so that we make sure that our sidewalks are accessible and clear for the movement of people. So again, making sure that there's a balanced approach here with all the things that take place on a sidewalk. And so it's critical for us to really learn from what we did in the past. And as Emily mentioned, what are some things that we can kind of streamline going forward? So how do we make the rules clear and the guidance straightforward?
So there has been an increased effort to keep things safe between diners, drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians. Can you tell us more about those efforts? Because I'm always super curious every time I see like an outdoor dining space. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, how is that safe? So I know you guys are working on that. Can you tell us a little bit more?
The theme of today and this whole effort is balance. So again, with so many different users of our streets, safety as well as accessibility is really it's key for us. And so New York City is huge. And when we put forth the emergency program, we were looking to create a simple set of guidelines. As we work towards a permanent program, it creates a great opportunity for us to fine tune a lot of the guidelines, beginning to account for more nuances of street widths to make sure that vehicles can turn with ease onto blocks, particularly emergency vehicles and large fire trucks. We're also going to be crafting guidelines that will ensure vehicles can see important traffic signs, making sure there are key sight lines between vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists to ensure safety with the program. And accessibility is also a key piece of this program, not only making sure that outdoor dining is fully accessible, but also that our sidewalks are able to be used by all the different people of varying abilities that need to get to where they need to go and need to access businesses, residences, work, all different and very important uses of our sidewalks.
Now, I'm really curious to know what will this process mean for Bronx businesses or maybe businesses that are more like mom and pop, smaller businesses. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So as mentioned earlier, we've heard a lot already in our interactions with every community board in the city, and so many folks from the Bronx community have come to those and shared their questions and concerns about what the current open restaurants program. And I think what we need to do is understand some of the challenges that restaurant owners have faced. A lot of different agencies are coming to inspect their setups, not just Department of Transportation, but our colleagues at Department of Sanitation and Department of Health. And so there's a lot of different entities from the city side that are coming to review these. And how do we going forward? How do we make sure that we're providing guidance that's understandable and clear? What types of resources are we providing to areas of the city that may not have the support? And it's really key that we're working with business owners and communities to understand what's happening on the ground.
Now, will this be open to any New York City restaurant, or is there an application process or possibly eligibility requirements?
Yeah, happy to start, and maybe Emily can add as well. So the permanent program that we're working on, in some respects, will still be open to all parts of the city. It's really going to come down to documenting well the things that are happening on the sidewalk in front of your business. So again, ensuring that you're you're maintaining the appropriate clear path for pedestrians, and also ensuring that you're maintaining the right distances from key pieces of infrastructure like fire hydrants. That we've learned a lot from the application process, as Emily mentioned, that really finding ways to make this an easier way for people to apply. That was definitely one of the challenges pre-COVID, where it was a very expensive process. It required licensed architecture firms and engineers to sign off on drawings, and it was very cumbersome. That said, as we're trying to make sure it's accessible and streamlined, it's still important that community boards have the ability to review these in certain instances to make sure that they're going to fit appropriately into a local neighborhood. So I think it's important to recognize that while we are finding ways to make it a little bit easier and accessible for businesses, there are still checkpoints and engagement that has to happen with community boards to ensure that quality of life standards are met and maintained.
Now, I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, and I was just going to add that, like Erick said, it ultimately won't work for everyone, but we continue to think about innovative solutions to engage restaurants and have some great examples of open street efforts. Alexander Avenue, Arthur Avenue, two fantastic open streets with fabulous restaurants in the Bronx. So at DOT, we're going to continue to engage with communities to think about additional ways to enhance public space in neighborhoods and also create opportunities for restaurants and outdoor dining.
So that's really amazing. I know a huge part of this is is inviting the public to address their opinions. So can you just let people know where they can learn more or keep in touch with your organizations?
So nyc.gov/openrestaurants is our main place for all relevant program information. There you can see the current program guidelines as well as timelines for the permanent program. And there we will also be actively posting about our outreach events, about surveys, and other ways for folks to engage and give us their input about the program.
All right. Thank you both so much for joining us. We'll be right back.